Hello and welcome to episode number 13 of the Curling Legends podcast. My name is Kevin Palmer, and each week through the curling season, I share a conversation with a player or storyteller from the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, or 90s. We cover curling from the invention of the slide through to the adoption of the free guard zone. This episode is part one of my conversation with Matt Baldwin. Thanks again for listening, and just to remind all of you, you can rate us on iTunes. You can also leave comments on our website, curlinglegends.ca. And as always, to remind you, if you have a friend or family member who would enjoy the show but has trouble with technology, please help them listen to the podcast. You can get us off the website, but you can also download us on iTunes, Stitcher, or any number of apps that you have on your phone that you can play podcasts on. Thanks again to Jerry Gertz of Curling Zone for his continued support of the podcast, and Steve Lobel, who provided the artwork, and Mark Rogman, who provided the music. Matt Baldwin's curling career goes back to the 1940s and began in a small town in Saskatchewan, eventually moved through university days to Edmonton, and there Matt found great success skipping a Brier Championship rink in 1954, and again in 1957 and 1958. Matt is also one of the most energetic and lively characters that you'll find even at 90, and the stories of Matt are legendary, and the stories that he himself tells are as well. This is part one of our conversation. I know you'll enjoy this as much as I did. Here is my conversation with Matt Baldwin. But yeah, I actually was an electrical engineer by schooling, University of Manitoba.
Okay.
So what was your engineering background then?
I graduated petroleum engineering from here. Mm-hmm. But I went to Saskatchewan for a while.
Oh, did you?
I was born just east of Saskatoon. Gordie Howe, mm-hmm. and we were about 7 miles apart. And his sister used to pitch girls' softball team for our Blucher softball team. So I used to see him and this kid who was about 3 years younger than me, but taller or bigger, and his brother. And they would come and they were just standing there watching his sister Gladys pitch the ball. Okay. And I was a bat boy, but I ran into him a few years after that. But we just knew that we knew one.
Knew that you knew. So what was the town then? What was the town you grew up in?
Pardon?
The name of the town?
Oh, Blucher.
In Blucher. Okay, so that's where you were born, and
Blucher is next town to Floral, and he comes from Floral. And then he moved. The family moved into Saskatoon. And that's where he started. The connection was his sister Gladys. She was built like a brick shit house. Yeah. Pitched straight, pitched the ball straight underhand. It wasn't there's none of this flip and sink. Okay. And she.
And you, how old were you at the time?
Oh, I was probably 12, 15, and we had a town softball team, or in district, if I could call it that. And I rode my bike to school in high school for the first 2 years. I rode from Blucher to Bradwell, which was 5 miles, for grade 9 and 10, and then I boarded there in the wintertime. Okay. So anyway.
So how big was the town?
Oh, Blucher was 50.
50? 50? Okay.
One winter we had 2 sets of twins in town, and we went from 48 to 52.
You increased by 8%.
Yeah.
So was it farming community then? Oh, so what did your parents do?
The farming around there, yeah. It sounds like I'm making this thing up.
Yeah.
The school was a mile out of town. Okay. I mean, I lived in town, and the goddamn one-room school was and they'd put the school down so it was closer to like the farms, mm-hmm. And the farms north of the town was all alkali sloughs and shit. Yeah. So all the good farmland was up there. So they put the school in the middle. But we had to walk a mile to school.
Yeah.
And then
uphill both ways, right?
It's uphill both ways. Oh God, I wouldn't have traded it for the world.
I'm guessing you learned to curl then in the town. Like, was there a
learned to curl?
A two-sheeter?
Well, in grade 9. As you can figure it out, it's, when I'm 9, I'm born in 26, so that's...
grade 9.
I'm grade 9 and I'm 15. So all the young guys of any age are in the Army.
Are gone to, because 1941 now.
Yeah. So the town has got 2 sheets of curling. The town is devoid of young guys. So the old guys in town, there was probably 6 or 8 that had a rank. That would be... And in order to make it work, they had to use women or conscript us guys from, as I call it, from school.
Yeah.
So instead of being able to skate around the rink with a rod in one arm and a 100-watt bulb at each end and do some kissing in the corner, I had to go in there and play with these old assholes curling. I hated it. I absolutely hated it. And oh shit, do I have to play for, because, they just sort of...
So you had no interest. It's not like there was so your parents didn't, you weren't brought up in curling at all in any way?
Because there wasn't any in the little town I came from. There was no curling rink.
Oh, okay, because it's the other town.
The other town. Okay. Bradwell had the high school, and they had a 2-sheet curling rink. And this was, as you know, in the prairies, that's a social aspect of the whole town, is the curling rink. You go down there, and they even, had little card games. We'd be out there for 2 or 1.5 or 2 hours playing with these old guys that just killed me. So I go, after grade 10, my marks were not great, so my dad said, I'm going to get this kid out of town. He didn't tell me that, but so I went into Saskatoon and to take 11 and 12, and at Nutana Collegiate in there. And the Nutana Curling Club is about 5 blocks away. And if you talk about the country rinks being a social place, these things were unbelievable. They were just, the old guys played cards and they curled and they'd, the whole shebang. Like all the curling clubs in town here, Granite, Alberta Avenue, Thistle, Royal, they were social clubs. They came and drank and played cards, and then they went down and curled once in a while, but it didn't really make any difference. But be that as it may.
So you're moving in for grade 11 into the city.
Yeah, okay.
But did you had you been turned over to like curling at that point?
Well, figure it out. I can't play basketball in Saskatoon. They had just started to have curling in high school. And so here I am in grade 11. They're looking for, and I said, I know how to play that game, So we had 4 rinks from Nutana. I was a skip. Because
you were the one that was the loudest that said you knew what you were doing?
Yeah. I just said, I know what I'm doing. I've played before. Yeah. And I went out there. So we finished doing that, and I go to the University of Saskatchewan. It's like, I can't explain it, but it's just like everything in the world happened to me that happened when it came to curling that happened, right? Mm-hmm. All these guys are coming back from the war, okay? Now, I'm at the university. There's, guys come back from the Air Force, the whole works, and they fill up the university with older guys from all these small towns.
Okay, at this point, they're much past the university age.
Yeah,
but they're coming back from the war.
Yeah, and they're from those towns all through Saskatchewan, and they've all curled. So we got the goddamnest curling club at the University of A that you can imagine. And I get right into it, hook, line, and sinker. I don't even know if they had a name for it, but the manager of to get this thing going.
Okay.
I can't remember if it was the first year or the second year. I, along with some other guys, got the first intervarsity curling championship that it had ever done, arranged to have it in Saskatoon. If you can believe it, we're talking about fairy tales here, because guess who? There's 2 rinks from each province, 2 from here, 2 from Manitoba.
This was a national event that you created.
Yes, but no BC, but Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Alberta.
Okay, like a prairie. Okay, so for the prairies,
So they come to the Granite Curling Club, and they didn't appoint me or anything. We had a play down, and I won one of the 2 spots. We didn't win the first championship. Alberta won it. A guy by the name of Donnie Butt. I came up here afterwards, but anyway, so we have this thing, and there's a guy from Manitoba called Billy McTavish. I don't know if you ever heard of Billy McTavish or not, but he actually represented Manitoba 1 year afterwards. But he was there from Manitoba, and I was really impressed with these guys. And it turned out they won. That's the first time I'd ever seen anybody slide.
Oh, I was going to ask you that. Hadn't seen a slide yet. So these were the guys that came from Manitoba.
Well, the only guy was McTavish, and he went probably from here to there.
Yeah.
Okay. we're talking about limitations here because of the stuff that you could put in the bottom of your foot. You got a hard piece of leather. It was about as good as you could do.
Yeah.
But be that as it may, they didn't stay in, we didn't quite stay in a hack, but we never went any more than 4 or 5 feet, 10 feet at the most. Anyway, this sliding thing kind of registered on my mind. And as I said, we didn't win. So as luck would have it, I was taking mechanical engineering. I went to work in the summer of 1948 in Lloydminster, and that was oil town, okay? There was no oil anywhere else. There had been, in the middle of the winter of 47, there had been a discovery of oil someplace in Alberta. Nobody thought too much about it. The first one, right out south of town here, okay? The Duke number 1. Yep. I never put 2 and 2 together. This doesn't have anything to do with it, but all of a sudden, everything falls together. I was a terrible student, and
why are you a terrible student? What was the?
When I say a terrible student, I hated studying and doing all that sort of stuff, and I hated assignments, and but I had to do them. But I wasn't going to I'm not getting kicked out or anything. But
you do enough to get by, and then you try to enjoy your other extracurricular activities and things you're doing outside.
There was a junior. They had 2 sets of hockey teams at the University of Saskatchewan. The senior team that played in intervarsity and a junior team. And I made the junior team. I don't know how I did it, but I did. We played against the Saskatoon Navy and Prince Albert junior team and such forth. So what I'm trying to say is I could have put a lot more time on my studies than I did.
Yeah.
The summer, I didn't even know that damn thing was on. But the summer of 48, I went Lloydminster, okay, was the job.
So you're out of school now, or is this like a school?
No, I'm still in university.
Okay, so it's like a co-op.
Yeah.
You're working through school.
I got 3 years in at the University of Saskatchewan, and we got talking with the guys, and they said there's a new course starting in Alberta called petroleum engineering. It kind of got my attention, and I thought, holy shit, I kind of liked what I was doing there in Lloyd. Not that it was anything more than just roughnecking. So to make a long story short, I got the papers and I applied to see if I could switch to petroleum engineering.
Because they didn't offer it at the time in Saskatchewan.
Oh, no.
Certainly. This is the first ever program.
The first ever program in Canada. Right, bingo, right over here. So they accepted me. They wouldn't accept just anybody, but they didn't have enough. They only had 16 guys. So they took me, even though my marks were pretty mediocre. They weren't terrible, but I wasn't a genius of any sort. So I come up here.
But you're smart enough to recognize the opportunity. Maybe that's
I'm out of home. Not that I didn't love home and that sort of thing, but the thought of getting away from Saskatchewan and starting up here. So I come up.
Was it a little scary or was it exciting to do that? Exciting.
So now I'm right in the swing of things up here because I've curled down there, So I get into the curling thing here at the university. I've represented the university every year of the remaining part of the thing, and I even persuaded the guy, Maury Van Vliet, who was the head of the athletic department. They used to give out crests, okay? And if you majored in 2 things, you played basketball on the senior team or you played hockey on the senior team, if you did it twice, you got a Block A sweater. Well, I got to have one of those Block A sweaters, but you can't get one for curling because it just isn't the thing to do.
Okay.
I don't know if I'm giving you way too much.
No. This is great. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's nice to know your motivation, Matt. At times.
Well, because it kind of all ties together.
Yeah. Now, were you at that point fairly competitive? Like,
yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
I can see you're still competitive. Yeah.
I was. That was never like.
Because, like you said, curling at first didn't seem interesting to you, but once you sort of got into it, once you started, enjoying it, you were.
Yeah. Well, and
you wanted to win.
We're talking about you're talking about curling in the infancy kind of thing. When I say infancy, about strategy and things like that. The club curling. It didn't have. It was great,
but it was social. The social piece was much more important than anything else.
Social was much more important than the other.
But the Brier had started to develop, and there had become a Canadian championship. So at that point, you're starting to follow that. You're aware of what's going on.
Well, back to Saskatchewan. The last year I was at the U of Saskatchewan, they had a Brier in Saskatoon. It was right after the war.
Okay.
They cut out for the war years, so about 45, 46, 43, 44, and 45 they cut out. 46 they had in Saskatoon.
First one ever in Saskatchewan.
Yeah, I was down there at the arena in Saskatoon watching that thing. And that I should have been doing.
Do you remember who won that?
Yeah,
one?
Billy Rose from Sedgwick. And he played off against a guy from Northern Ontario who went on to win the Brier once after that. I'll think of his name in a minute.
So now you're in this Edmonton scene.
Okay.
Right? Yeah.
So I graduated, I just gravitated down to the granite curling rink, and I'm into with both things. And
can I go back for 1 second?
Yeah.
On the university level, then at that point when you were in University of Alberta, you said that, so you're competing. What were you competing for? Was some of the stuff that you had started continued? Was there like a Western Canadian competition, or what were you? Well, what did you compete in?
I'd got this thing going in when I was in, and it was continuing on when I came up here.
Okay.
So now I get into it and I get a rink, and we win Alberta. I won the University of Alberta one every year that I was there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then went in to compete into the event that you'd helped start years before.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. And my father-in-law was a dean of dentistry. I didn't know that at the time, but I was taking out this girl and he had a connection with Maury Van Vliet, who was a guru at Alberta here, you know. And so I met him I wasn't drinking, but I happened to be a hanger-on at a cocktail party, and I got it here, and I said, how come I can't win a Block A? I said, and especially if we beat somebody else, like Saskatchewan and Manitoba. And the quick answer is, he said, okay. He didn't do it right then.
Yeah.
So anyway, I ended up with a Block A sweater, which was, to do with the curling from University of Alberta.
Still have it?
Huh?
You still have it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I put that on every once in a while.
Still fits?
Oh yeah.
Still fits.
It might be a little large even. So when I'm still into curling.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. I know I'm not bad.
Did you get into your studies though? At that point, maybe you hadn't applied yourself when you came to Edmonton. You got into that program.
Yeah.
You did manage to get your way through it and get your degree.
It took me an extra year to get my degree, and I graduated in 1951, and it was the best year that I ever spent was the last year, the extra one, because I got into a class, and this we're digressing for a minute, but
that's fine.
I got into a class of about, instead of being 16 guys, there was about almost 40.
So the second class behind you.
The second class. And all those guys that went out of there ended up by being head of oil companies and all that sort of shit. So I know all these guys. So anyway, I didn't realize at the time that they would come in handy down the road because I didn't know for sure what the hell I was going to do.
Yeah.
But I'll stay on the curling end of it. So what we did there was, as I said, we won the thing, and then we won the InterVarsity thing, and that was that. So then I got out of university and started an oil well servicing company with one of my classmates. On the curling end of it, nothing. I'd go into the city bonspiel. I won the Grand Aggregate for a couple of years in 51 and 52 and all that sort of shit. But bingo, along in 1954, they're going to have the first Brier they ever had in Edmonton at the old whatever.
The Edmonton Gardens, I guess.
Edmonton Gardens.
Yeah. So where was that located? The Edmonton
right
Gardens,
out there, not far from where. Across, what's the one called now out there?
Up in the northeast, the older building or the new one? Rexall?
The one before.
Yeah, Rexall up
Rexall Place.
Yeah, near the Coliseum and up in the northeast.
Coliseum.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, just to the south of the Coliseum is where the old Edmonton Arena was.
Yeah.
Okay?
How big? So how big?
How many would it hold?
Yeah.
I think it would hold probably 4,500, 5,000 most. I know they filled it every day in 54. But, where the hell was I?
Had you gone into playdowns prior to that in 51, 52, 53 in an attempt to get to the Brier, or did you? Yeah. So you had some experience playing and competing locally. Yeah.
Right. Believe me, the competition here was tough.
Well, I was going to ask you, so what was curling like then in Edmonton at that time, just kind of post-war in the city?
There were good They weren't stacked from top to bottom. The club rinks basically weren't stacked. And this is another aspect of the curling thing, but they're not stacked because you had the good skips and the mediocre skips and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And you could have a good skip and a good third man, and you'd probably win the club championship. But the catch was, in both Saskatchewan and Alberta, it wasn't considered cricket to stack your rink in the club.
Okay.
And which brings me to another thing I want to talk about before I get off. I don't remember. So in the club, you just curled and you did things. And when you went into the city bonspiel, you'd probably try to get a good third.
So you wouldn't use the team you're playing with normally?
No.
You'd build like an all-star team?
Well, not an all-star team.
Yeah.
Because still wasn't kind of cricket to stack them from top to bottom. Yeah. But it was considered etiquette or okay. This is strange the way this thing worked.
Yeah.
But you can get a good third man. I mean, get the best goddamn third man you can get. And a couple of guys playing lead and second that know what's going on. And as far as sweeping was concerned, forget about it because they're all big brooms and nobody knew how to sweep anyway. It was reasonably effective, but only to get rid of the straws that they put in there in the first place. So I went into the city bonspiel. I won. Obviously, I'm not bragging because you want to know what I won. But I won in 52 and 53. I won the grand aggregate and the hot shot stuff that's going on. Okay, so there's a guy in my club.
One thing, you're young at this point. The other better players, the top teams, right? Yeah.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. I know.
You're probably 24, 25, and that's not. Yeah, it's considered young for a skip, isn't it?
That's right.
Yeah.
No, I'm young for a skip. They didn't even want to let you skip, and it was kind of an age thing as far as the clubs were concerned, But I was good enough that they would let me curl. But I didn't really care that much about club curling. It wasn't a big thing for me. It was more the drinking part of it afterwards. You go down there and fool around. But it was going into the bonspiel and that sort of thing. But there wasn't there was another phenomenon in that period of time. There was the car spiels.
So that had already started. When did
the car spiel started when I was going to University of Saskatchewan.
Really?
In Nipawin.
Yeah. So the Nipawin was that early? Okay.
Nipawin was first one.
Yeah.
First car spiel.
What year was? Do you remember the year of the first one?
Be about 40, probably 45.
Really?
46, 47. It was a big deal. I mean, and how they come up with the concept or knowledge and how I don't know, but they did it, and they had everybody coming in from Manitoba and from all over, to get them out. You got 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 rinks from Manitoba, from Winnipeg coming up there. Pappy Wood, he won the first one that they had there and that sort of stuff. Anyway, back to the club thing. So, but I had a business and you did it at night. I wasn't big in club curling. I can't even remember if I won a thing as far as the club thing was at all. What I used to do, there was another guy at the Granite, and his name was Glenn Gray. I don't know if you've heard of Glenn or not. He was a good golfer. He was a good athlete. I was on the Wellington Cup team. That's a team that they used to have that competed in curling. I mean, in golf.
In golf, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
His dad was kind of the matriarch of the Granite curling rink. It kind of said, you can do this or you can do that, and you can't. And Glenn was his son, and he doted on him. And Glenn was good at curling, and he was good at golf. He was good, sort of all-around athlete. So, and he and I, when I was going to university the last year, we had a thing going against one another. And we would play for $10, which is a big deal.
Yeah.
And people don't curl for money, But Glenn and I just play at the Granite. His old man would be behind the glass watching us. I beat him most of the time.
You just play head to head.
Yeah, head to head.
Yeah.
He got the best rink he could get, and I got the best rink.
Oh, okay. You'd get a team. Okay.
Oh no, no, curling. We had a curling team, and it came down to skips that made the difference a lot. And the old man would be behind the glass. And if I won, I didn't win them all, but I won some. Glenn would pay me. I smoked in those days, and he'd put $10 in a cigarette box and slide it over, and I'd take it out so the old man wouldn't see that he'd lost $10. I bring that up because we come back to 1954, which when the world changed.
And how old's Glenn then? He's about your age? Or?
Yeah, he's about a year older.
Okay.
So the Briers come into Edmonton, big deal. And but that, I'm out working and I'm saying, holy shit, I got to get a rink. But there's not too many guys.
Because you didn't really have, you didn't have the same competitive rink that you'd take in everything. You might grab some guys and go on an event, grab some guys and play in the club, but it was never thinking about forming a team that for a season. That didn't really occur to you. Or a rink, yeah.
I just cracked you. I'm sure, I can't remember exactly how I felt, but I'm sure this is what I was, this is a one-time opportunity. We got to do something about this.
So that was really, if this Brier had been in Toronto or out in Montreal, it wouldn't have had the same urgency.
Well, because I couldn't afford to travel. I'm not going anywhere.
You're building a career.
We're just talking about it happens to be here, and it's first time in Edmonton and all that sort of. Well, it's a huge thing as far as the curling thing was concerned. So I go to Glenn and I said, we can beat our heads together, like this. One of us will probably we will not necessarily win, but we'd have a hell of a chance if we went together. First of all, I wouldn't have to beat you. I'm not going to go through the arguments, but because I can't remember exactly what they were. But there would be a question about who's going to skip. And I had made up my mind that this was non-negotiable. I didn't tell Glenn that or anything. But so I approached Glenn, and the old man was not jumping up and down about this because Glenn was his apple. This kid was a great athlete, golf team, a whole bit. So they had a club rink. Bill Gray was his dad's name. And his third man was the name of Pete Ferry. And he got Pete Ferry because Pete was a good curler. And he could get him because he had him working for him, in a company called Concrete Drainage Pipe. Doesn't matter. So if I could get...
Pete's an older guy? Or is he around the same age as you guys? Or he's a bit older?
Older.
A bit older.
Yeah, he's quite a bit older. He'd be 5 years old. But Pete Ferry's a big, strong guy, but reliable and can hit the broom and that sort of crap. And he would be playing with Glenn if he went in through the Brier. I had another guy for lead, but Jimmy Collins. So to make a long story short, Glenn says, okay, maybe that's not a bad idea. So I had to convince his dad because his dad was the boss. He just had to know this guy. He was the fucking dictator. Anyway, finally, and I can't because it takes too long. But the old man said, okay, you and Pete can play with Matt. Kind of.
Yeah.
So.
But you were the one that took it upon yourself to convince him of this a little bit, or make the argument that, look, this makes a lot more sense, and it will all be more successful this way.
First of all, you remember, you had to come out of your club. I couldn't get somebody from the next club. You had to come out of your own club. It was one of the reasons that it was tough for the western provinces outside of Winnipeg, and we're going to talk about that one in a second.
This is for 54. Now, the year before, in 53, you'd had some success, right, as well. So that wasn't with Glenn at the time. And you'd lost the Alberta the final to go to the Brier in 53, is that correct?
That's right. Yeah. In 1953, I forgot about that. 53, I win the North with basically a club rank. And we lose to Len Haw, I think it was, in Calgary. It doesn't matter. Pretty sure it was Len Haw, but be that as it may. Yeah, so I won the, I forgot about that. Because if you don't win the Brier, forget about everything else.
But so at that point, looking at 54, you felt pretty confident you had a good chance. This wasn't as if this was a long shot for you. You felt comfortable with the way you were playing and get the right team together.
Well, the point is...
Get the right rink together.
Yeah, the point is that really in your own mind, you think you can beat anybody. If you don't have that attitude, you ain't going anywhere. And the truth of the matter is I could. And I did. So I get Glenn and Pete and Jimmy Collins, and I got a good rink. And okay, so we got to go. We got to win the province. Now,
well, first you got to get out of the club. How many teams would be playing out of the club?
Oh shit, it would be nothing much. I can't even remember of who.
10, 20, but the number of teams. It'd still be a lot of games, wouldn't it?
Probably less than 10.
Oh, okay, so not that.
Okay, yeah. There wouldn't be. There's only a handful when would go in. And then we had to win the North. And then the South came in. Bill Allen from Olds was a guy.
So they would just have one team won the North and one team won the South, is how it would...
No, at that, okay, one team won the North, one team won the South, Northwest Territories, and Peace River. So you had a provincial playoff of 4 rinks.
Yeah.
You had the Peace River area, the North, because...
But to win that North, that was a really heavy competition.
Oh, yeah.
Because you had to get out of this region. Yeah.
Yes. He had beat Cliff Manhan, the old guy, you know, he'd won the Brier twice in the 30s.
Now, you're clearly sliding by this point, though, right? Had you developed your slide and started to... Oh, not yet?
No.
Okay.
So what's happening with this thing? I'm first there at the Granite. Nobody's sliding. You know, I mean, Glenn and I were fooling around, and this is before Teflon. You know, I mean, there's no such thing as a composite thing on the bottom of your shoulder. What leads up to these rinks being better than one another is we had what the hell there was a name for it, but a Super League, I guess you'd call it.
Yeah.
Down at the Edmonton Curling Club, just across the bridge, the high-level bridge. And we played there every Sunday against one another. And you'd take all the heavy hitters from all the curling clubs in town. There'd probably be 2 groups of 6 or something like that would play round robins against one another. So we had lots of competition. I mean, the curling was starting to come around because...
It's the strategy starting to form a little bit more at this point? Yeah.
That's right. But the strategy was different because I just remember thinking, as soon as my second man finished curling, throwing his rock, now I can start figuring out what I'm going to do. You know, you just kind of went through the routine until you got the first 8 rocks over with, because your third man hopefully was one that could make a shot for you, come in behind, do whatever, and you would, the other guys would draw in and that sort of stuff, but you didn't have a finesse game going right from the start. Your finesse game really started with the last 4 rocks.
Yeah. So you're just hoping that those first 2 guys didn't get you into too much trouble.
Yeah.
You try to maneuver things enough to maybe set yourself up so that your third man could make some shots, and then you could score on that.
Yeah. If you were playing ordinary rinks, the leads and seconds could come into the game, but there really wasn't a hell of a lot of strategy got going in it. It might be dump it out in front, that sort of thing. If you're before the game came to the point where you banged everything off the front, but the game started. But even in '54, it wasn't a game that you started with your lead. That sort of thing.
Yeah. So back to the provincial at that point. So there's 4 teams. What happens in that provincial in '54 as an example? You've got the 4 teams.
Okay.
This is your second trip to provincials then, is it? In '54?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you play, how many games do you play? What's the structure of it?
We had the same format, but the only guy in there that was formidable was a guy by the name of Bill Allen from Lowell. And he'd won the South 2 or 3 times. He was heavy hitting her in the Calgary Bonspiel and everything else. And the Robinson boys from Jasper and their dad skipped in the 2 sons and one other guy, Scotty Cameron. Was it a round robin, or everybody played each other then, or then you played how many games would you compete? You played, as I remember, you played a round robin, and then if there was ties, you played off. I remember playing Len Haw. Yeah.
So did you have So in '54, did you have to play one final game then to get through, or did you do pretty well to get out of the province?
Yeah. Well, there was one final game we played that whoever won that was going to win the thing. And we were playing in a club. We played in the Edmonton Curling Club, and it wasn't even in the center sheet. It was the second one in from the outside. I can remember, because they had people walking. They wanted to have it so people could stand on the edge and watch the game. So they moved you out to the second one in from the outside edge, so they wouldn't be standing there, hissing at you or anything. You think about it, it's kind of funny. I mean, over here you've got 8-sheet curling rink, and there's 5 of them, and they're empty. 6 is here.
The other 2 sheets beside it are full of people just milling about watching.
You're playing in 7, and 8 is 8, and people are standing over there.
Yeah.
And that's so you could have a crowd watch it, kind of thing. And where the hell were we?
So you're playing that final game. This is to play in the Edmonton Brier.
Yeah.
At that point, it sounds like probably the biggest game you played in, or did you have a sense going into it? This is to win that game, to play into the Edmonton Brier. This was a big deal.
It was a big game. It was for the provincial championship, and was inside of the Edmonton Curling Club on sheet 7.
Yeah.
And the guy was good, but we were better. We weren't unbeatable or anything like that, but we were starting to get to the point where strategy could come into it a little bit, especially with Glenn and I. And
so you guys got along despite being kind of rivals. You get along real well.
When we were playing together, we got along well.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a good teammate. And
Dad probably stood at the end of the sheet
absolutely,
all the time, watching.
Absolutely, saying everything that you did wrong or that sort of thing.
So when you won that game, though, I'm assuming then Mr. Gray was had a smile on his face?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, he was. I'm talking too much.
No, you're good.
You asked me some questions.
We want to get it. No, it's good. This is kind of the point, just to chat. So what's the time frame? You're finishing into that playdown. The Brier started when then in relation? Was it a couple weeks later, like very shortly after?
Probably a couple of weeks.
Yeah. So at that point, what's your aspirations going into that Brier? Did you feel like you not having been to one, you'd been to one as a fan in Saskatoon many years before, but what was your sense going into it?
Well, I was apprehensive. I certainly didn't think that we were going to, this was going to be a piece of cake or anything, and even the thoughts of winning it was beyond me. Mm-hmm. I mean, I was going to be to win a Brier was just I mean, it's just nothing like it. So, but I remember looking at the roster and I saw that there was a former BC champion by the name of Bung Cartmel in it, and he'd won it either 2 or 3 times, the BC championship, never won a Brier. Mm-hmm. But Jimmy Welch, I get Welch and Welch, was a former either 1 or 2 time winner, and he was there from Manitoba. And I think it was Jimmy, I can't remember if it was Jimmy Welch or, well, I'll tell you who it was.
Yeah.
I can tell you right here.
You've got the book right there.
Jimmy Welch.
Jimmy Welch, yeah.
So, no, and I, you just sit around and you're saying, there's no reason why we can't beat these guys. I mean, but nothing in my mind that I was going to go in there and kill everybody. Mm-hmm. I mean, my first thought was, don't make a fool of yourself, and I didn't think that we would. But there was these guys got there, and 3 guys or 4 guys, 2 other guys at least, that had been there before. Mm-hmm. So anyway, we went in there, and
is that the one that you were undefeated in? Was it 54? No, it wasn't 50. Okay.
We lost a game in 54. We only lost one to the oldest guy in there. He was 65 years old. And
you were 27.
I was 27. He was 65, and he was from Ontario.
Was any other skips at that Brier even close to your age then? Was there?
No.
All of them were 30s or 40s?
That's right. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. 27 was kind of was the youngest.
Well, when you won, you were the youngest.
I don't even know
if
there's been anybody since. But there hasn't. Ernie was 27 or 28, and Garner.
Till Burtnyk in '81, you were the youngest.
Yeah.
Right. To win the Brier.
Yeah, that's right. So anyway, I can't even remember what the hell.
Well, we were talking about sliding a little bit too.
Yeah, this is very interesting.
You had started to develop a slide then at some point in the.
Well, we tried
in the mid 50s.
Yeah, we tried sliding. Yeah. Both Glenn and I tried sliding down there and trying to get something. And the best I could come up with was a pair of Oxfords that I had with a leather sole.
And when were you testing this out? Is this in 54 when you and Glenn are playing together?
Well, I tried it at the Granite.
Yeah.
We tried this. I tried sliding, and I gave it up. And I went back and put my overshoe on again, or whatever you want to call it, and went 6 feet or 8 feet or whatever it was. So when it came to the Brier, or before, there's probably a year or 2 in there before this happened.
Okay.
And I've got this. I've still got the shoe, and I still got the sole on it. Only the sole now has Teflon on it, because this was what I used for. So when I could, with my ordinary delivery, and you can look, if you ever look at the 54 thing, you'd probably go 8 feet.
And at that point, you're still wearing the same sort of shoes that you've been wearing previously.
Yeah. I wore the same shoes all the time, curly.
Yeah.
And it was one thing, and it kept getting wet and kept getting and dry out and wet, and it kept getting shinier and shinier, and you'd probably every once in a while you gain an inch or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 inches when you're with your ordinary slide, but it was still a leather sole. I'd used this thing for 2 or 3 years to get to this point. This thing is like God as far as I'm concerned, because if I ever lost that shoe, I couldn't get the same effect out of anything else.
Yeah.
There was guys trying to put liquid solder on the bottom of their shoes and it would break and fall off and all that sort of stuff. But I could go without much effort, because you're reasonably strong at that age. I'd probably go 8 feet or 10 feet out before I let go of the rock. But that was, that's all that you needed. Mm-hmm. But I could go further.
If you wanted to. Yeah.
I could go further if I wanted to, but I had to wind up and really get at it to do it, which would take away from sort of any finesse that there was. All your effort would be in kicking off, and you'd have to get used to how fast you're slowing down and all that sort of stuff. In other words, there wouldn't be a correlation. It might be okay. You wouldn't be doing it if you're throwing a takeout, because you got to let go too soon. And if you're throwing a draw, and you just didn't slide that far. But I could go further. So, which I'll go on to something.
Well, yeah, because in that Brier, right, there's the final game, I guess, right, of the round robin?
The final game, when we were killing whoever it was somebody. And everybody, but even then, the slide was getting a little attention, even though it wasn't nearly.
Even though it was only 10 feet or 12, like this was considered a long way to go. And
yeah. Well, yeah, because every once in a while you get out past the front of the house, and that God, that was. In fact, they told me at the Granite, they said you can't do that. It's right in the rules, and I said, you show me the rules. They were the old guys were mad.
Yeah.
This guy's sliding, and you can't do that. You got to let the guy.
So at the Brier, then, what about for the fan? What did the fans think of it?
Okay, but there was a group of people, I guess, that knew that I could slide farther. Mm-hmm. So as I know what you're getting around to, because in this last game, I'm getting ready to throw my last rock. The game is over. Basically, you got to finish the game, but we're up about 7 points.
Okay, so there wasn't handshaking at that.
No, we did. You didn't walk off. We played the whole. You played the whole goddamn 12 ends. Yeah. And I can actually tell you what the score was, but it was 10-5.
Against, and if you got the...
Yeah, there it is right there.
Against New Brunswick.
Yeah.
Against McCully, yeah.
Vic McCully. So I'm sitting in the hack. I've won the Brier. They can't get 4 more points. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's past the point. It's the last rock of the game, and it's all the whole shebang. It's all my scene. Yeah. And these people start saying, slide, slide. So, obviously.
You hadn't thought of doing this at that point, just the crowd's getting into it. Yeah.
Never. I never thought of it, because it was considered, it wasn't a popular thing to do.
Especially with the old guard, for sure. Right?
Absolutely.
But the fans at this point are enjoying it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, let's have some excitement, for Christ's sake. I mean, this game is over. Yeah. And so they yell and slide. So I practiced doing this, but not for this particular reason. Mm-hmm. I mean, but I could do it. I could slide. So I wound up, and I got just about halfway down the sheet. And how these guys just push themselves out easy and then go halfway down. But anyway, I get there, and I'm just about ready to come to a stop. And I thought, I got to get rid of this fucking thing. So I give it a shove, and you know exactly what happened. The fucking thing ends up being right on the can, right on the button. And they said, holy shit, this guy's good, And it was the biggest fluke, that you could possibly ever have. I mean, there was no...
But the crowd goes wild.
Because there's no way I would know what weight. You just know... I wanted to get it hard enough to get over the hog line, not hard enough to get to the hack, and somewhere in between.
But so the crowd at this point...
Oh, they went wild.
Well, that's one thing I read a little bit too, that, again, thinking back to that era, that you brought a little bit of the excitement of other sports into curling too. My understanding is, I don't know if it was at that Brier as well, that you'd show some emotion. So some excitement, maybe, I don't know, did you fist pump? Did you high five? What was it? What did it seem like?
It came easy. Mm-hmm. Because for some reason or other, I guess with lots of guys that are in sports or whatever, I like the attention. I mean, I have to admit, it's nice to know that there's somebody paying, you're throwing a rock and there's nobody looking at you, and I probably had a few mannerisms that attracted people to watch what I was doing.
Well, no one else at the time was like this. It was very stoic.
It was a bunch of old men. It was they're standing around and they're clamoring for some. And in '57, when one of the greatest Briers ever, We had, oh man.
Well, before we get to 57, I want to ask you, okay, so one of the unfortunate things about playing in Edmonton, likely a great thrill for you to play in Edmonton, part of what made you think about forming that team and competing, and you won. That was fantastic. But you didn't get to take the Brier train because you lived in Edmonton, right?
Yeah.
So your next Brier was 56, and you had to go to Moncton, New Brunswick.
You got an hour?
Have as much time as you want to take. And it was actually Larry Wood who mentioned to me, because he'd heard, and that was even before when he started covering curling, he suggested that perhaps if it hadn't been such a long train ride, you guys might have had more success at that Brier.
Well,
and this is a new team too, right? You had a whole new team.
But this was not a powerhouse. Even though I'd won the Brier, I was still in business, and I mean, curling was curling, but it wasn't like a profession or anything.
Yeah, it wasn't. So it's not like everyone, the media, and everyone's got attention on your team, you and Glenn, and what's happening next year. Did you even know if you'd play together next year? That maybe wasn't even in consideration, was it?
What's that?
The following season in 55, was there even discussion that you would play together with that same team necessarily?
Yeah, we did play the next year, and you had to go to the playdowns.
Yeah.
You know how long we lasted? 2 games. We went to the Alberta Avenue in the morning and played a good rink. Pete Huzar, I even remember the name, beat us close. Went down to the Edmonton Curling Club, and a guy by the name of Mike O'Reilly, who was a local hotshot, and he had one of his good games, and bingo, we're finished. It's over with. From a Brier 1 year to, you're not even in the goddamn playdowns. I mean, it's just, holy shit.
Yeah.
That's
and that took the air out of the team right there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it didn't make me not want to curl anymore. I just was, because the truth of the matter was, the rinks that you weren't that much better than anybody else. You know, you were a little better, but you weren't head and heels. You know, I can remember when we played Michael Riley, there was frost on the ice. You know, I mean, it was, you could have an excuse, but I mean, give me a break. And the guy says, well, yeah, but the other guy was throwing on the same stuff.
Plus, coming out that next season, everybody's is aiming at you because you're the Brier champ, so everyone's going to try that much extra harder maybe to be it. Plus, was there still a sense that you were kind of a young man in an older man's game? Was there an animosity about that, or was locally within Edmonton, was there still pretty good
there was
camaraderie?
There was some, there wasn't, we were starting to make inroads as far as the old man thing was concerned. There was a bunch of young people in it, but it was such a thing in the clubs that the older guys got to skip. Yeah. I mean, it was like the tradition was passed down. The older they were and the more crotchety you were, you get to be a skip. Yeah. Bring me back to this in a minute because I want to digress for a minute, and I'll probably forget what we're talking about. But talking about back there, 1954, before we won, we had won, Alberta had won 4 times. Cliffman had won twice. A guy from southern Alberta had won once, and Billy Rose from Sedgwick had won once, 4 times. Manitoba had 22 wins, 22-4, okay? And so I'm looking at this thing. I said, there's got to be something wrong here. I mean, Manitoba, these guys aren't that much better than us, but they got to go about this thing a different way. And sure enough, when I looked into it, I mean, I'm telling you the truth, because I couldn't figure out why the fuck there was this much better. I found out that in Manitoba, they take their club rink, and that's their Brier rink. And Ken Watson had his brother, he had Jimmy whatever was playing lead. His Brier rink is his club rink, and they're stacked right from the word go.
So every game they play together.
Every game they play
with as a team, and they're
and the guys they play against in the clubs, they're stacked too. In other words, Manitoba in their clubs, they didn't fool around. You just put at the start of the season, you put together in your club rink the best rink you could put together, and that's what you took into the Brier. Yeah. And they just come out of there and killed everybody.
And they've also got that many more games with each other over everybody else.
So when I go back to Saskatoon, I look back at it now and realize what I was looking at. When I remember there was a guy that wanted me, because I was a pretty good curler in Saskatoon and played over at the Nutana Club. This guy, his name was Billy Macdonald. He was a minister of the cloth, and they said to him, "You're stacking your rink, you know." I mean, because in Saskatchewan, I mean, the way they played down for the Brier was they played off in their own club, and then they went to all the clubs come up with a champion, and then these guys played off. So what you had was a competition within your own club, and you were considered an asshole if you plugged your rink to play off against your own club. You understand what I'm saying?
So you're not necessarily getting the best team then to represent your province.
No, that's right.
And that's, yeah.
And it was prevailed through the whole province. I mean, that was the way they worked.
And Alberta was similar? You saw then as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's basically what it was. Mm-hmm. And Manitoba, I mean, when they came into the Brier, they were just like playing. It was a Brier rink against a club rink. Mm-hmm. So they killed everybody for whatever. So, and this one here is, we changed. Mm-hmm. That's why some of the guys in the country, mm-hmm. like Billy Rose, they didn't have to play off in their own club. They kind of said, this is who we're going to send to represent our club from Sedgwick. Mm-hmm. And he gets the best third man that's in the club, and they probably have their own rinks during the year. But when it came to the Brier, they went together. Mm-hmm. And Billy just happened to be an exceptional curler anyway, plus he put together a good rink. But I just bring that up to, it was back to where it's 23-1, or mm-hmm. 23-4.
Yeah.
And now, it ain't 23-4 anymore. Mm-hmm. It's pretty well, Manitoba might be at 25, and we might even have more wins, mm-hmm. Alberta, than them. Mm-hmm. Because...
Pretty close. Yeah.
And I don't mean...
I think when Cooey won last year, that might have been the one that went one more, or I can't remember exactly.
But the point was mm-hmm. that
Manitoba had a head start in terms of competing for a Brier.
Yeah,
but
then it became mm-hmm. not as good because they kept the same way, but the other guys that were putting together heavy hitting rinks, mm-hmm. They were better than the rink that the guy had in Manitoba, if you know what I mean.
Because it's the one he started with. All year.
So for a while, all of a sudden, the guy that's got this nice, beautiful club rink that's better than everything else in Manitoba, that was better than everybody else before, isn't better than what the other guys are putting together.
So what did you put together in '56 then? What was the beginnings of that team?
56. 56 was just I got a good third. I had to. Mm-hmm. Glenn was taking his own rink. Matter of fact, I had to beat him. He had Pete Ferry.
You had Gord Haynes.
Gordie Haynes, yeah. Art Kleinmeyer and Bill Henning, I think it was.
Bill Price.
Bill Price. That's when I got.
Bill Price was the next year. Yeah, I was in '57.
Yeah, 57 and '58. I had Price playing lead.
Okay. Yeah.
And I played off against Glenn in '56 mm-hmm. to go down east.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll stay on that, and then we're going to talk about this train trip.
Okay, so you're playing off against Glenn. Yeah. You were teammates. You won the Brier together. Now you're competing against him to go at that point to win the Northerns, or was that?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, I still had to win the provincial.
Yeah. But that was the rivalry.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah. And
had you still remained friends then at that point, or was?
We were friends, but not like we were never ever, even when we played together, mm-hmm. like buddy. We were different in a different thing. Glenn was a very nice guy, tough guy to get close to. He was, I want to use the word controlled by his father, mm-hmm. And he was a strange duck. He had a lot of ability, but he wasn't a guy that you could get kind of close to.
Mm-hmm. So that was a big game to win, and was it a close game? Was that a close game then?
Yes, absolutely. Last rock. Mm-hmm. I remember distinctly. Oh yeah, I never had anything. None of them were pushed. I didn't expect to beat him. Mm-hmm. I mean, he had a really good rink, and I had a pretty good rink.
And did the rest of your team have the confidence you had as well? Like, it sounds like you weren't fully confident. Yeah. The rest of your squad maybe was going into that game. I think
they thought I don't think they expected to win.
Yeah.
I mean, Bill Henning playing lead Bill was not he's just an ordinary club curler. And it wasn't that I came out, I wasn't dedicated, I'm going to put the greatest, because I didn't, I didn't know if I could ever win another one at that point, but it.
So, do you remember the final shot then, I assume?
All I know is it was about this much difference. Either that or it was a measure.
So it was an inch or a measure, yeah.
It was.
And you had the final shot, or?
I'm guessing.
Yeah.
But I think he had last shock, and I think it was very close to being a measure. And I know it was a shock for them. Oh, I know why. Yes, Lionel Wood. Have you ever heard of Lionel Wood? Lionel Wood is a son of Poppy Wood.
Okay.
And he's a brother of Howie Wood Jr. And he came here from Manitoba. And he thought that he was, he became a very close friend afterwards, but not when we were curling. He was playing with Glenn, and we had, I think it was the type of playoff as I remember, we had to beat them. There was 3 games, and they won the first game, and we had to play them. And if they win the second game, it's over.
Best of 3, have to beat them twice. Yeah.
As I remember. But they won the first game, and they go out to the television station, and they're being interviewed on the thing, and I'm sitting there watching this thing, just pissed off. But and Lionel said. And Lionel was a guy who I loved dearly after, but I hated him then. We used to body check one another on the ice. I mean, he was a big guy, and he'd get in the way, but whatever. So they're being interviewed at the television station, and the guy said, "Oh, you got a brother Howie and Howie was in the finals of the Brier in Winnipeg,
At the provincial to go.
Yes.
At that time. Yeah.
Howie was in. I don't know if Howie went or not, but be that as it may, the guy asked him about his brother Howie in Manitoba, and he said, "Yeah." And of course, we went by train to go down. He said, "I'm going to wave at him as we go by." In other words, they haven't played. They got 2 more games.
And you heard this?
Yeah, I watched it on fucking television.
Yeah.
And they're the ones that are being interviewed because they won the first game, and we got the other ones to play. And I said, "You sons of bitches!" You know, I mean, talk about a motivation.
Yeah.
And it turned out that anyway, we had the last laugh.
And then so let's bring down like you say, it could have an hour to talk about that one train ride. Let's bring it down to whatever you think is manageable. But to start it off, you started at the train actually starts where? Does it start in Vancouver?
Yes.
Yeah. And then makes its way, so it comes to Alberta. Where did you pick it up in Edmonton or down in Calgary, or where did
it? I think it's a special car.
Yeah.
Okay. And then it comes through Edmonton.
Yeah. So this would be your first one in '56 because you hadn't experienced it in '54.
This is my first one.
Yeah.
And your train ride we're talking about.
The train ride.
Okay.
Yeah. For the Brier train. Yeah.
So you get on the.
They call it the Friendship. The Friendship
I don't know.
car or something.
We had the
like
last 2 cars, either 2 or 3. There was a sleeper car, and then the very last one on the train. Can you imagine that's what Macdonald Tobacco Company is doing this thing? Is this club car, and it's nothing but curler. I mean, you're going to just keep picking them up until I don't think we got in the club car until we got to Winnipeg. I remember we stopped in Winnipeg. We were there overnight. I actually played an exhibition game against Howie Wood Jr.'s father. Go Pappy Wood.
Okay.
No, pardon me.
Yeah.
I played against Howie.
Okay.
And Howie wasn't in the Brier, but we were.
Bill McTavish made that Brier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Or Billy Walsh. Sorry, Billy Walsh.
Billy
Walsh. Yeah.
Billy Walsh.
Yeah.
I'd love to play it against.
Because we'll get to that in a second, but yeah.
Okay. Let's stay on this one. So what happens is we're not in the club car yet, but we pick up Jimmy Hill and his group in Saskatoon, and Jimmy and I and Elmer McNiven and Harold Worth, and that's a good rink from Saskatchewan. These guys can curl, and I was very respectful of them. And in fact, I thought he would win that Brier because I didn't have a really strong rink. I had I had a good club rink, but nothing much more. Anyway, once we get to Winnipeg, we've got the full treatment and booze, cigarettes, cards, and we stopped in Toronto and we stopped in Montreal. And I can't remember one of those places we stayed overnight. But anyway, by the time that we get to Moncton, I've almost got the shake from boozing and smoking and carousing.
Staying up. How much sleep did you get?
I don't know.
And it was. And how many days straight was that? How many days straight was that trip?
Probably take 5 days.
5 days, yeah.
Yeah, and I remember I said when we were drinking all the time. I mean, there was no such thing as and of course.
No one was probably going to let you rest as well. I'm sure.
Well, no, that's true. But let me put it this way: it would have been tough to be serious. I mean, like a teetotaler said, I'm not going to partake.
Yeah.
But that was my lifestyle. I drank, smoked, Right. I mean,
tell stories.
Yeah. I mean, I did that when I was going.
You did mention your studies suffered at times in the earlier days. Yes.
We didn't. We behave yourself here in the Brier in '54, but the rest of the time I didn't pay too much attention to making sure. Anyway,
even talking to you about it now, you seem exhausted. Just talking about it, it seems like it was an incredible 5 days.
I remember this because I want to tell you. So of the mindset, we're getting off the train, and they said the New Brunswick didn't have any bars.
Okay,
It was dry.
Yeah.
And I said, holy shit, what are we going to do for,
Because those 5 days are just the warm-up.
They said, the Beaver Club is out there right attached to the arena, and that's where they're going to have the Brier. And he said, it's a deal. So Bill Good, have you ever heard of Bill Good? Bill Good, sports writer from BC. Anyway, we were getting off the train, and he said, I got to see this, the thing. I said to my guys, you go get the hotel rooms. I'm going to check out the Beaver Club. So over we go in there, and you wouldn't believe this, but we're in New Brunswick, it's dry. They got slot machines. They got slot machines in this fucking thing. And as far as the province being dry, every second corner has got a club on it, and a private club, and they serve booze. I mean, so it was, so anyway, I'm talking too much on it. But,
so that became almost like a briar patch a little bit, or because it was right near there, and so it became the place to go each evening, and there was...
I'm playing Manitoba. No, I'm playing Saskatchewan the next day in the morning. At 2 o'clock in the morning, we're partying. I go up and take their hotel room door off, lay it in the hallway, take it down to the end of the hallway. I mean, this is a guy that's supposed to be trying to... We didn't win that Brier. We had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
There was times when I was ready to, but I like to have fun. And it got in the way of good curling every once in a while, but not too often. I mean, I'm not saying I was ridiculous or anything, but
you're not the first, and you won't be the last in curling. Although
we had a lot of fun.
That Brier had the famous shot. It was Billy Walsh and Alf Phillips Sr. And there was a famous shot that Billy Walsh made in that final. Did you see that final game then and see that?
I was standing right up above when he was making that shot, and the reason it was a tough shot was because, or an unusual.
Well, explain the shot again. So he's got to try to come around. Do you remember the
shot
situation?
Itself, yeah. He's only got to beat a rock that's barely biting the 8 foot. You know what I mean? It's not a 4 foot shot or anything else. It's out here on the left hand side. But what made everything so bad was there was frost on the outside edges from the humidity and in the arena kind of thing. And this stuff got so that you couldn't make a shot. These guys today would go nuts.
Yeah.
I mean, they couldn't make shots. This is like you go off the center part, which is only like this much wide.
Yeah, like 2 feet. So the center. So really, outside of the 4 foot or even half of the 8, you're unmakeable.
No man's land.
Yeah.
Absolutely, throw it and pray. And that's the kind of a shot he had to make. And nobody really expected him to make it. I mean, that's how tough it was because he didn't really know what the hell to throw, I mean. But he threw it, and it ended up by being shot by about about this much or something. And so that's the reason it was spectacular. He didn't come through a hole. It wasn't wide open. It was, but it was this shit that he had to go
through. And everybody understood the conditions and of course the moment, because it's the final game and this decides the winner.
Well, they did a lot of play. They played a lot of the curling in this much of the ice.
Just a lot of times you couldn't get out to the wings at all.
I mean, it's kind of hard to explain because nobody would kind of believe that you had to do that. You know, and even most Briers didn't have that bad ice.
Now, by 56, then at this point, had the slide kind of fully developed in terms of the rules in that? Were you at that point, starting to slide down the sheet a little bit, or where was it at that Brier? Then I'm trying to remember there was challenges with what the rule should be for a while. whether you should be over the line, partially over the line, jump over the line.
Yeah.
So where was that at that point?
Everybody could slide now.
Mm-hmm.
Dale had
so two years removed from you sliding halfway down the ice, and okay, everyone was doing it.
Everybody, once it was in, it was...
You're a trendsetter, Matt. Everybody, you were a trendsetter for sure. Everybody started doing it, yeah.
Well, everybody was trying to do it, but he couldn't come up for anything you put on your goddamn sole. You know, I mean, you think about it. Teflon, there's not a composite made yet. When I think about it, there was a tabletop called Arborite, but when you put it on, you couldn't get something that would, you bend the sole of your foot.
So you tried a number of things, like you yourself examined a bunch of different ways to do this,
I even put liquid solder on but nothing.
Yeah.
But I realized that this was as close as you could get it.
Yeah.
But once you had Teflon,
But at that point, what was the rule in 56 then? You had to let it go before the hog line, or was there sort of, do you remember? Or 50?
Yeah. You had to let it go before the hog line.
They finally got that one figured out. I know it took a little time for them to decide on the actual. That seemed to make the most sense, but I remember hearing that you could slide, but your foot couldn't slide over, or your whole body couldn't end up over the hog line.
They had it screwed up so bad there for a while, and I can't even remember because it went from one. But there was a car spiel here in Edmonton going off the thing, and there was a guy from Saskatoon that used to Johnny Dipple, that was his name. He was a hot shot from Saskatoon, and he slid, and he liked sliding, and he wouldn't let that fucking thing go until he was like halfway down the sheet sometimes. I remember where I was playing. I remember old Edmonton Curling Club, and I said, I was not going past the hot line. There was an unwritten rule there for about 2 years where you could kind of do what you wanted, but
guys wouldn't do it. They wouldn't. Yeah.
You wouldn't do it just because it wasn't a thing to do. It's
still a gentleman's game, and you recognize that there's certain things.
And this isn't the Brier, but it was
you're in a car spiel at this point.
Car spiel, and I didn't like the guy anyway, and I'm not too sure if it was a close game. You'd be better off if you didn't do that, and bingo. So I said, okay, buddy, this is what you... So I went down, and I got about 8 feet in front of the fucking house, and just went, and there was a rock there.
In front of the far house? Yeah. Like you slid all the way down to the...
Over the hog line.
Past both hog lines.
Came to a stop, and the rock was sitting there about 10 feet ahead of me, and went, boom, like that.
Yeah.
I said, okay, now are we going to do this anymore? Because I said, if you keep sliding down there, because we'll change this. So he quit. He quit.
Quit doing it.
Well, he quit doing it past the hog line,
So that was that was sort of your way of saying, look, because again, the reason you did it in 54 was the game was over, the event was over, everyone was cheering, you were, you had the enthusiasm to do it in terms of sliding in 54.
Well, yes.
Why you did it, right? This situation was he was using it as a way as an advantage, and because there wasn't a written rule, although as you said, it was definitely an unwritten rule, because the game would have been ludicrous at that point if everyone wanted to slide down to the other end.
No, that's right. The thing was, nobody knew exactly what the rule was, but the guys that respected one another, if they went a foot over the hog line or something, that didn't matter.
Yeah.
But when some guy starts going halfway down the sheet and you say something to him,
Yeah. So in 57, after 56, were you at that point more dedicated to get back? Were you disappointed with the results in 56 and felt, okay, I could have done better? Was that something that going into that next season, was that thought with you?
Yes. Yeah.
Because, you went back in 57, back in 58, and won both of those.
Yeah, but...
At that point, likely the strongest team in the country.
But at this point, I'm in business, and curling is part of my life, but it's not the whole thing. The one that was the whole thing was 1954 at this point, and I'm
you're getting some balance almost a little bit.
Yes, I'm curling, and when it comes to the Brier, I'll put something together. I knew I had I could curl even if I didn't curl every day. I didn't have to be at it 90 day in and day out. And I put together a pretty good rink. My regular third man at the club with Gordie Howe, and I got a guy from that had an oil connection, Art Kleinmeyer, who worked for Imperial Oil here at Devon, and we were getting some work out there. And I asked him to play on my rink. I wasn't thinking about winning the Brier or anything, but Billy Price was a friend of mine and a good curler and a good lead. and you didn't want to play any place else. He was happy there.
Which was hard to find sometimes, to find a good player that was happy to be at Leeds.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So we went in. Are you talking about?
In 57. Yeah, 57.
57.
Yeah.
So we go down.
So at this point, like you say, you're building your business. Maybe not playing. You're not throwing rocks every day. You're not as focused on the game. But when you headed into playdowns, you had this team. You felt confident, and you win the province again in 57. Was it close? A close battle, or
absolutely?
Yeah.
The only time that I really put together a rink to try to win a Brier was 54.
Yeah.
The other ones kind of, I'm in business. Mm-hmm. I mean, I didn't think I'd ever win a Brier again. This is a fluke.
Okay. So even in 57, you're like, we went in 56. I'll give it a try, but I'm not. This isn't everything.
I won't
this
say.
Is just,
there would be more than that, but it wasn't. I never had aspirations of going to the Brier, but I thought we could be as good as everybody else, because remember, everybody else wasn't perfect, at this point. So I said, I got a guy from Imperial Oil that I'm getting work from. I got Billy Price, my good guy, my regular third man, Gordie Howe, who is a good curler, good for me. He and I got along well, and he was a good strategist kind of thing. He could keep things on the straight and narrow. And we,
57, you decided not. So you win the province in 57. So you get through that. Was it, again, were there some close games? Was it in doubt at some point? It sounds like you didn't necessarily feel like it was a team built to go to the Brier every year, but...
It was a team that was built to go to the Brier, but I didn't know if I could do it or not. I didn't have a super duper rink or anything like that. Mm-hmm. We're matched at second. At lead. I can get by, if I can get by this guy here at second, which was kind of iffy. Mm-hmm. I got a third man I can play with. And Gordie was just threw him from a short slide, but he was good for me mentally. Yeah. And I was in charge. Not that I wasn't, but in 54, Glenn and I are kind of almost equals.
And two skips a little sometimes, probably.
This is my own one.
Yeah.
The North, I'm playing Lionel Wood.
Mm-hmm. That same Lionel Wood, who's
the same Lionel Wood.
At this point, you're still not friendly yet. A year later,
we're a little friendlier, but we're not buddy.
Yeah,
we're not buddy. We used to body check one another.
Still, yeah.
And at this point, he's got one eye. This is a different year than that one other one where he was playing with Glenn Gray. This is one where he's skipping himself, okay? That's 56 with Glenn. So he's got a good rink, okay? And we're playing for the Northern, I won't go through the preliminaries. We got one game left, winner take all. Mm-hmm. He already knows that his brother, Howie, has won Manitoba.
Oh, that year, okay. He's going to Manitoba.
He won Manitoba.
Going to the Brier out of Manitoba.
He's out of Manitoba. Yeah. He knows that. It was that was just the day before yesterday. Mm-hmm. We were playing out there. He has 12 end games. Everything is, the Briers for 12 end games and all that sort of shit. He has a 12 end game. He has his 5 down after 8.
Has you guys 5 down?
Yes.
After 8?
He has 5 down after 8. We're 2 down coming home. I won't go through the other, how we got up. And we get 3. I beat him. He had a habit of putting the broom down and then not shooting at it. He'd shoot it at Bill Keeley's foot, and he'd think that I'd be stupid enough to think that this was the ice that I needed to hit the fucking rock.
So he was doing that as a mind game, little gamesmanship.
Absolutely, mind game. And why he would think that would work on me, I don't know, but it made me. What it did is it made me mad. And
he would think that you would even consider that.
Yeah. The thing about me is I play better if I'm not mad, but sometimes I do play, but be that as it may.
So it's the second year in a row that Lionel's just said or done the wrong thing that's got you a little bit...
well, he was with Glenn one year, and then anyway, you had to feel sorry for him because he's got this thing, and he still had... That would have won the North. He's still got to play off against the South.
Yeah.
I forget to say that he's not there yet, but he's that was 5 down. And
did Lionel ever get there? I was going to ask you that. Did Lionel ever get there then? So he lost in 57. Never got to the Brier. Yeah.
So then I go to the Brier and I'm playing Howie. Mm-hmm. If you look at this thing here,
let's check it out.
This was a good Brier. This is the toughest Brier in the world, right here. Never lost a game. But I want to Saskatchewan, or Manitoba, right? This is the one. Anyway,
Was it late in the week? Like this is
it isn't that. That's actually not the way the score was. Old Howard Condi was about 90 years old at this point. I know what 90 years old is.
And a young Don Duguid playing
two brothers
for Howie as well. Yeah.
Anyway, I'm off track here now, but oh, listen, if you want to stay off track for a minute,
Sure.
This is the most unbelievable Brier there ever was. I mean,
So Garnet Campbell, is it that one as well?
There's
Howie Wood.
There's Kenny Weldon is from Manitoba. He's won it before. He won Manitoba before, never won the Brier. He represented Manitoba either twice or three times. But this was his second, either his second or his third time coming out of Manitoba. So he's no pushover, okay? Jigsy McDonald.
Sorry, out of Manitoba. Well, no, Manitoba was Howie Wood, you said, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Okay. I'm just Kenny Weldon. I'm
out of Kenny Weldon out of
Quebec.
But
he represented Manitoba twice.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Before
but had moved to Quebec and now
went
he was
to Quebec. That's where. I'm sorry. I got that. That is confusing. But we're playing Garnet, and after 10 ends, they're 12 end games. After 10 end, Garnet has us down 3. It's 7-4, and we got 2 on 11, stole 1 on 12, and stole 1 on 13. And the one on 13 is they're laying 3. One's at the back of the 4-foot, and he's got last rock, and I got one left. I come down and I throw it right on the fucking front of this thing. But it's kind of it's at the back instead of it being over the button. It's at the back. So all he has to do is he's got a chance he can throw one overhand and split it out and count these over here. But I'm frozen enough that he doesn't want to take a chance on it. So he comes down to the front of it. And they had a measure, and anyway, we won by this much.
By like less than an inch. Yeah.
With him having last rock on.
And that was it. Was that a game that really decided it? How did Garnet finish up for the rest of the week?
Yeah, they would have won the Brier. But Christ, you get me excited.
That's great.
You can see what it was like when I was playing.
Well, I got to ask you then. So by that point in 57, you were considered boisterous for the old guard, but by this point now, a few years later, probably the atmosphere has changed. The Briers getting bigger. That kind of excitement was probably expected and encouraged probably from a lot of players.
I tell you something. I put on a show that week. I mean, much more than any other one I was in.
And that was also, I think, that Brier, you maybe a little less partying at the Beaver Club and a little more attention.
Oh yeah,
paid
we behaved ourselves because there was Reg Stone from Trail, and Reg Stone had come out of Manitoba. He and his brother were great curlers. He won the cars in Saskatoon, and he represented BC 2 or 3 different times. You got Garnet Campbell, you got Reg Stone, you got Howie Wood Jr. and
Ken Walden, you mentioned. Ken Walden out of Quebec at this point, but had previously been. So you had a lot of previous prior.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about it being this was something else. This one.
Did you even surprise yourself that year?
Absolutely.
Then? Yeah.
Absolutely. The crowds were unreal because there was some great shot making in it. I mean, this was a different type of shot making than there is now. I mean, you had sweepers with straws falling all over the place, and you had ice that wasn't perfect, and you just pray. You prayed that you get the rocks to do the same thing twice.
Well, and there was an advantage if you could read ice effectively, right? That was a real skill that one skip might have over another.
Yeah, well, that was part of the game. Reading the ice. You guys, let's just say he's a pretty good guy, but he can read. He knows how to read ice. I mean, it was part of your makeup as a skip. Your guy doesn't know his ass from a hole in the ground. He couldn't, and sweeping made a difference. And I mean, it was an entirely different game.